迎第17队 Grade 4发表主题 A New RIP Life in AC Era， 请第18队预备。
Everyone, we're in Grade 4.
Did you hear that alert ringing?
Yeah, it's a tragedy happening around the world.
Oh no, are there ways to survive from this?
Yes, they are. Living an R&B life in this after COVID-19 era might be one of them. The COVID-19 pandemic, as a seismic shock, has brought fundamental changes to our lifestyle.
So, what has changed in our lives after the outbreak?
Our economy, environments, education, and our lifestyles altered much over these months. These changes force us to adapt ourselves into the old environment, but with new challenges.
Well, can you tell me more?
Sure, let's begin with a pure part in economy. Due to the global pandemic, the second quarter of 2020 is the worst quarter in global trade on record. The majority of the countries are struggling with the downturn of the economy. In terms of employment, more and more people are losing their jobs. What is worth noticing is that the pandemic widens the gaps between the poor and the rich, leaving the poor further disadvantaged.
Exactly, totally agree with that. That's why newspapers are reporting that the virus has affected differently between the poor and the rich, which leads to extreme inequality. The blue-collar workers struggle between works and lives because their pattern of work does not allow them to work from home. It is clear that being catalyzed by the epidemic, the rich enjoy more privilege, while the poor are at a higher risk for losing their lives. To the blacks and Latins, racism is another form of the pandemic. It's really sad to see this happening.
Yes, but don't worry, the IMF has taken action, urged the policymakers to implement social assistance mechanisms to protect the most vulnerable.
Well, I believe that's going to be a better situation. On the other hand, the environment has been affected at the same time. So what does the pandemic bring to our environment? Luckily, COVID-19 lockdown does good to our Earth. If we look down on our Earth from the outer space, the world's carbon emissions seem to be reduced. The cause behind this derives from a new way of working, work from home. The demand of fossil fuels drops, and so does the emission of CO2.
As the world becomes more interconnected, so do people take more risks. Speaking of this, education is no exception.
True, besides workers, students are victims as well. Our education is also forced to change. Students in COVID-19 stricken countries even study at home online. Teleconference software such as Zoom, Google Meet are good helpers. These are our friends from different countries who had video call on Zoom. All of them think that the pandemic influenced them a lot. Many countries impose restrictions on people to make them stay at home. Fortunately, despite the long distance, they can communicate and cherish each other by using teleconference software and realize that no one is alone. We will face and undergo this tragedy together.
Yes, but the anxieties and fears invade and occupy our minds. Many people lost their loved ones in the pandemic. Even doctors and nurses put themselves at risk to fight against the pandemic and try to save others. Seeing these sad things actually made me feel frustrated.
I feel the same way, but don't be depressed. We believe that all of the people who sacrificed in this pandemic will rest in peace along with the fears, as long as we live in a new RIP life after coronavirus. What's more, the fear aligned with the changes in economy, environment, and education actually is a golden opportunity for us to reconsider what makes a new life. Well, speaking of RIP, I wonder what the new RIP action means. Would you explain this?
Of course. First, R stands for Reset Priorities. With self-isolating and quarantine and social distancing, people have begun to revert their focus back to the most important things like families, friends, and most especially, ourselves. How to reassess our priorities come first after the pandemic. Life is so short that we should spend our limited time on people we love and things we care about. So what about I?
Second, I stands for intensified trust. Anxiety and fear are contagious. In the beginning, out of fright, people stockpile food and supplies, line for 2 hours for masks, and even fight with each other for sanitizers. However, as they gradually witness the measures, people start to put trust in the governments much more than before. It's such a critical fact that Taiwanese have got ready to cooperate with the governments to stay rational and calm throughout the outbreak that is likely to happen again. So Vicky, what does peace stand for?
Last but not least, peace stands for pull together. After the outbreak, personal hygiene is emphasized. But can we defeat the virus only by wearing masks and washing hands? Of course not. Viruses don't discriminate against their victims. Humans are likely to do so. Remember that we are all in this together. We should work for public health regardless of the poor or the rich. Let us put it this way. To live in a new RIP life, we should hold on to the present and cherish people around us more. After all, life is too short to be wasted.
We call Lassie July's poem as our conclusion.
What if 2020 isn't cancelled? What if 2020 is a year we've been waiting for?
A year so uncomfortable, so painful, so scary, so raw that it finally forces us to grow.
A year that screams so loud, finally awakening us from our ignorant slumber. A year we finally accept the need for change.
Declare change, work for change, become the change.
A year we finally band together instead of pushing each other further apart. 2020 isn't cancelled, but rather the most important year of them all.
We want to say